Oh, hello there, everybody, and welcome to Adventures in History. Hope you're having a lovely afternoon, or morning, or middle of the night, depending on where you are time zone wise. How's it going? How's everybody? You're not having a lovely night. That's unfortunately. Are you criticizing my sign on there? What's up, KP? How's it going? I thought it was rather clever. If anybody gets to say anything about it, it's you, right? It was ruined by. Oh, hello there. Oh, man. Oh, goodness. Uh, I don't know why I'm so excited and tickled about that. How's it going, everybody? Welcome in. Hope that you're having a good one. I do. And welcome to Adventures in History, where we talk about history and we make fun out of history. And sometimes we make fun of history. But it's okay, because they're all dead, right? So they don't really mind. What's up, Blue? How's it going? How's things? So, if you can tell, tonight we are talking about China, which of course is everybody's favorite topic to talk about, and we got some interesting things tonight. Got some political intrigue, got some religious intrigue. We've got assassin eunuchs or eunuch assassins. What's the per? What's so they are assassins, and eunuch would describe what kind of assassins they are. So eunuch assassins, yeah. Interesting times in China in the 9th century. We'll just say it that way, right? And unfortunate times. Tang Dynasty is one of my favorite ones. What was the name of that psychotic Japanese child emperor again? Okay, so you're going to have to be a bit more specific. Are you talking about the ones that we just talked about a couple of weeks ago? That was like running people down with his horse and being all crazy and stuff, and ended up getting pushed off the throne. If so, that was Emperor Yozei. It's Yozei. Yozei. He was. I can't remember exactly what emperor he was. Do you have any idea how little that narrows it down? That's a fair question. The one who had dogs fight monkeys. Yeah, Yozai. That was him. He's an interesting little kid. And I'll remind everybody that he only ruled for about. So he was like 8 when he took over, and I think he ruled for about 6 years. He was 14 or 15 when they pushed him off the throne, but he lived until he was 80, right? And was just as weird for the next 65 years. Remember the strangling people with guitar string things. Yeah, he's kind of a messy little kid. Anyway, was there a particular thought that brought that up, Blue, or were you just like, "Hey, man, that guy was crazy," and I wanted to tell somebody else about him, so I forgot. I needed to know the name. Anyway, we don't have anybody nearly that bad in China this go round. We've got some people that are going to be not the best of rulers this go round. We've got a few people that tried a really, really hard shot at pulling things back together, and a couple of people that even managed to make some headway against the chaos. But ultimately, as you can tell by the title of the stream tonight, we are sort of at the tail end of the Tang Dynasty, and they are going to be in almost consistent decline for this century. What's up, Moose? I was telling my friend you learned from about. I learned from you. Okay, cool. And I thought my life peaking at 22 was bad. Poor kid never topped being 14. Well, I mean, if you're Kyle, if we're looking at peaked as hit maximum homicidal, I don't know if that's necessarily something that you directly want to one compare yourself with him as, right? Like, I think you've got plenty of time to grow into a bigger homicidal maniac than he was. um, plenty of time, right? Shane does not condone murder. I think I've talked about that multiple times. I just want to I want to reinforce that. Shane does not condone murder. That was pure sarcasm. Also, hey, Kyle, yeah, follow your dreams. Right? As long as your dreams don't involve taking someone else's liberty or trampling on somebody else's freedoms or killing somebody, yeah, I think that's okay. He doesn't normally condone murder. I'm going to have to examine if that statement is true or not. I don't like murder. Murder is bad, and murder is not good. And he also doesn't not condone murder of key leaders in bad places. Yeah, that's. I know where you're going, and I don't know if I can directly argue with it. I don't want to be the decision that gets somebody dead. But if somebody else made a decision that got some other specific people dead, I would still not condone it, but I might look the other way. And that's just me being a human, right? Unpopular opinion, guys. Murder is bad. Murder is bad. It is bad. There's not an ultimately redeeming factor for murder. But man, there are some days where I think certain people really deserve it. And I have to fight that because that's the vindictive, primal, lizard brain part of me yelling in the background, right? Have you ever killed anyone? No, I haven't. I have killed animals, but while hunting, not like, Shane decided to go kill the neighbor's dog. That's not what I'm talking about. But I have hunted for a large portion of my life, and I have killed animals for food. Not for caprice, right? Yes, but they were all bad. Exactly. So now we're in the true lies territory. Murder is bad and wrong. It needs a stronger word like badong. Yes, murder is badong. I appreciate that reference to Kung Pao Enter the Fist, Gilded Preacher. I'll say this because my wife is watching. I was about 45 seconds away from watching Kung Pao Enter the Fist last time I got to pick what we did on date night. But then I was like, my wife really doesn't think that Kung Pao Enter the Fist is funny. So instead we watched some of our favorite episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which was better for both of us. What's up, Shema Knight? How's it going? You could totally murder a bacon cheeseburger and a chocolate shake right now. Again with the milkshakes. I had forgotten about milkshakes until... Oh, now I want milkshakes again. Murder is bad. Political assassination can be helpful. Tuna, I appreciate you attempting to Venn diagram that out for me. But I still think that political assassination is still wholly within the big circle of murder. I have barely watched any of Always Sunny. It feels weird to watch it alone. How do I forget milkshakes? I tell myself that I don't need one and to stop thinking about it. And I've become much better at telling myself to shut up. As a side effect of talking to people about anxiety, including trained clinical professionals, I've gained a much better ability to tell my brain to shut up about stuff. Including, like, I really want a milkshake, but if I work at it, I can tell my brain to shut the heck up about a milkshake. And then chat reminds me, right, Tommy? This is how you remind me of who I really am, right? I might have to go get a hot fudge milkshake tomorrow. We have a place that has them, and butterscotch milkshakes. See, butterscotch is one of those things where I like it, but there's a tipping point where butterscotch gets too butterscotchy. It can get too intense, and I worry a lot when I get stuff that has butterscotch that it's going to be over the intensity line that I care for. So I tend to avoid it if I have to pay a lot of money for it. It has to be really cheap, like a $2 bag of butterscotch candies. I can splurge on that and be okay. But it's like you're gonna go get a $4 or $5 tub of ice cream that's butterscotch. I don't know about that, man. I don't know. Butterscotch is easy to overdo. Yep. Eggnog shakes are the best. I've never had an eggnog shake. I'm sure you do want to offer me something, but you can also offer that to nobody because you are banned. Quick, who invented milkshakes? I don't actually know who invented milkshakes. That's a great question. I don't know, Blue. You're fine avoiding milkshakes. It's the chocolate chip cookies that are my weakness. Yeah, or Oreos. Oh, dude, Oreos are like... I could eat Oreos until I'm literally sick, and I know that because I've done it. You're a big fan of fruity stuff. So fruity stuff has its place. I like fruity things. I like fruity, like if it's a pie or like hard candies. I'm a big fan of Jolly Ranchers. I like Starburst. But fruity and cold is not usually a combination that I care for, unless it's like those old school, like freezer pops. That they come in a long plastic bag, and you just throw them in the freezer, and you chop the top of them off with a pair of scissors and just eat them out of the little plastic thing. Like those, I could eat like a million of, right? And now we'll never know what he's selling. Flavor ice. Yeah, that's it. I forgot the word for it. Someone brought double stuffed Oreos to the office last week. Alas. Milkshakes were probably invented in Ohio. That's where ice cream was developed. Didn't know that either, Moose. Thank you. They slice up in the corners of your mouth. Yeah, you got to push them up from the bottom until the ice sticks out of the top, right? That's the trick. You rip it off with your teeth like a man. Yeah, but then it's all raggedy. I don't know. I don't like that. We've definitely not sidetracked Shane. It's easy to sidetrack me talking about food and stuff like that. So we could go ahead and talk about China if you want to. I don't mind the tangents. I'm sure that in about a minute, there's going to be a thing that pops up that says something about .com. That says something about tangents. Offer Moose promotion on your Moose channel. Tell me your thoughts on tasty cakes. Well, I've got plenty, and stories to go along with them. Tasty cakes are pretty dang good. I like some tasty cakes. All right. Do you know what I miss? Marathon bars. The foot long one, not the British ripoff. I have not had a marathon bar in enough time that I don't really remember what they taste like. I know that I had them when I was a kid, and I enjoyed them when I was a kid, but also when I was a kid, just to be for real, everything was good, right? So like if it was candy and junk food, it didn't really matter. So I wasn't necessarily trying to distinguish the individual flavors. It was just like, do you want a candy bar? Yes, please. Who would even want Moose in his northern exposure? Alas. And now Moose is sad. Sad Moose is sad. All right, let's talk about China, and maybe we can make Moose happier. No, go back. What did I do? What is this? No. Ah, crud. Did I screw this up? Oh, man. I think I may have just messed up my photos. Oh, well, let me see if I can get it to work again. Images. Hey, look, it works. Marathon bars were what Snickers were called in the UK. I bet they tasted differently, though. Depending on the customizability, it could be very helpful. What's up, Noger? I thought marathon bars were something different. Because I thought they were... Or am I thinking Mars bar? Maybe I'm thinking Mars bar. There was something with an M that I can't find anymore from when I was a kid. Anyway, in honor of tonight's episode, I am currently eating Mrs. Schmo's homemade mochi. There we go. I like me some mochi. Google says in 1922, Ivan Pop Colson, a Walgreens employee, sought to improve the company's chocolate malt beverages, and so he invented milkshakes. Well, there we go. His name was Ivan Colson. His name was Ivan Colson. His name was Ivan. Anyway, that's Robert Paulson from the movie. Dead-end jobs can make historical impacts. There we go. Mars were always Mars. Maybe, I don't know what I'm even thinking about anymore. Here's Tang, China in the year 800, so this is when we're picking up. And if you'll notice, they're surrounded by a lot of other people, especially the Tibetans in the big old thing here, which is, something that we've been talking about for a couple of streams. We've got the Uyghur Khaganate up here. They won't be around for the whole period of time, but, you can tell right here they kick out at 840, but we've already talked about that last stream. We've got this new group down here called the Nanjiao. We'll actually be talking about them in a couple of streams when we kick back around here in Southeast Asia. So China has been much diminished from where it was at the beginning of the height of the Tang Dynasty back about 100 years prior to this, when they controlled effectively all of this stuff. Like this whole zone right here was under Tang control. And they were controlling about somewhere between about half to 2/3 of the Silk Road at that point, and it was very profitable, but they've lost all of that to the expanding Tibetan Empire, and they can't even project themselves any further up here because of the Uyghur Khaganate. And of course we've got Balai and Shilla over here trying to do their thing and expand. So this is what we're up against for China. It's not necessarily the best position to be in. Also, the last time we talked about China, we talked about this big thing called the Anlushan Rebellion, which was a humongous, devastating rebellion that killed millions of people and wrecked the Chinese economy. So when we're talking about the early 800s, China's in bad spot if you're trying to lead China out of this. And they're going to have to do a lot of reformatting. And one of the big things that they had to do was try to figure out how to get some money. So the central government was pretty much flatlined, if we're just being honest. There were a lot of these people breaking away. There were all kinds of rebellions going on. They had lost a lot of territory. Tibetan expansion had conquered several of their provinces and added them to the Tibetan Empire. Things were just not going so great. All right, so how do we make money? And the answer is salt. And you go, okay, well, sure, salt tastes good. We like it. But basically what they decided to do is they're kind of going to drop a lot of their provincial taxes, and they're going to focus on a government monopoly on salt. Now, this is an interesting economic approach to a problem, right? This is sort of instead of having what we might call an income tax, we're going to have a sort of national sales tax where if you buy or sell salt, you're going to have to buy it from the government. And the government is going to control the price of it, and they're going to profit from that. So this is a government monopoly that is specifically designed to fund the government, which is something that's really kind of unique at this point in the ancient world. You don't really see stuff like this going on anywhere else in the world during this time. And it actually does seem to work kind of okay. It's not the world's best system because, again, you're still dealing with a whole bunch of rebellion, and this isn't going to necessarily end the political trouble or the ethnic trouble that you're going through. It's just going to give you a fairly steady revenue stream. You're not reliant on these provincial governors to send in paychecks every year because they weren't doing it anyway. So if you can kind of let them off the hook, maybe that makes them not so interested in rebelling. They do have to go buy their salt from you, which of course opens a gigantic black market with salt trade, and you get in trouble then from importing salt from outside of the country and all this stuff. And there's, it doesn't work all the way across. But what this means is that in certain ways, the government is going to weaken itself. And in other ways, it's going to take more control. And it's a bit of a mixed bag. they come out of it more or less stable. They do have a revenue stream, but I got some black market for salt. Just slip me some of that good tea. Tea actually wasn't really that expensive in China, and it had never really been. The whole sort of tea boom really only happens when the British and the Dutch show up. A little bit with the Portuguese, but the Portuguese never really get too much of a hold in China. It's really the British and the Dutch that fuel the tea boom. The Portuguese were heading towards China, and then they had this giant war with Spain, and Spain basically took them over and claimed all of their colonies. And then Portugal was like, you can't have our colonies. So there was a Portugal government kind of in exile that was still trying to run some of the colonies. And then the Portuguese got really upset with the Spanish controlling them. So they went to the English and they were like, hey, England, you hate Spain. And England was like, yes, we do hate Spain. And Portugal said, look, if you help us get our independence again, we'll be friends with you. And England goes, what we would really like is some of those sweet, sweet territories that you're holding on to in places like India. And Portugal was like, but those are our colonies. And England's like, well, you don't have any territory at all at home anymore. So which one do you want, a homeland or some colonies? And England ended up getting a lot of Portuguese trade cities on the Indian coastline, which of course they then had to go conquer because the people in them were still Portuguese, and they're like, man, forget the English, we're not giving up. And then they had to because, cannons. So it's a big old mess. I could go into all of that stuff, and we will later on when we get to all of the great imperial dealings of the 16 and 1700s. What's up, Lumpy? Good to see you, my friend. How are you? But what's life like in China during this time? Just like, what's the everyday person dealing with, right? Things are not so great for the average person in China during this time. There's a lot of trouble going on. Now, some of the places do get some stuff kind of going. There are still some big public works, but they're not going to be funded by the sort of central government anymore. They're going to be funded by local communities. Big trouble in smaller China, not little China. They're not little yet. They're just smaller. Big trouble in, we've lost 5 of our provinces, China. But we do still see some big public works, like this guy. This is the Leshan Buddha, which is pretty honkin' big. Like you can see, people down here, and this guy's really honkin' big. You ate Jerusalem artichokes for the first time. Topinambour in French. They made me fart bad. You had not farted this intensely since your last colonoscopy. Wow, Lumpy, that's intense. I was not expecting to talk about artichoke farts, but I guess it's a thing. So at least you know that you've got a clear system, right? Which is not nothing. Buddha sitting on the toilet before cell phones were invented. I don't know. You know how to make good conversation? Everybody farts. I once made a point in a class, in a religion class, that if you believed that Jesus was a completely earthly human, as well as being God, then you had to admit that Jesus farted and pooped. Because that's what humans do. And a lot of people didn't really care for that idea, and didn't really like my assertion that Jesus had to poop. Because then they had to imagine the savior of all mankind squatting down and taking a poo. And I'm trying to make you imagine this now. Everybody farts sometimes, right? Anyway, this is the Leshan Buddha. And the reason I point out this one in particular, again, it was funded and constructed by local communities. This was something that was not funded by the central government. And this is sort of indicative of what life was sort of like in China during this time. You had some places where the economy was going okay, and you had, free time, and you had the ability to, marshal manpower to carve this out of the side of a mountain. And you had enough money to pay people to do this. But again, it wasn't coming from the central government. It was coming from local people. So you see from this that we have this sort of fracturing of the system, and you have local governments becoming much more important in people's lives sometimes than the national government, right? And that's pretty indicative of this whole century. People are going to be a little bit more interested in what's going on right around them than they are what's going on in the central government. And part of that is because the central government's not going to be doing that great, but we'll get to that in just a second. Think of the price Jesus farts could fetch on the internet. Well, that's a lot. If you could prove it, I don't know if you have provenance that goes back that far. You'd have to find something that was sealed in Roman glass from that far back. And Romans did have really, really good glass technology back then. They made probably the best glass on earth. And the Romans would have been around that area at that time because there was already a Roman governor in Judea where Jesus would have lived. So if you can find a sealed glass vessel from that region, from that time period, you could potentially do chemical analysis of the contents. It'd be difficult to do that without breaking the sealed portion of it. Maybe some light spectronomy, if you could get something that would shine through the glass in such a way to illuminate or diffract light off of the material contents. You could potentially tell whether or not it might have a fart in it. I don't think this is going to get funding. I don't think so either. It's probably pretty expensive stuff. And people now think that I'm super blasphemous. But honestly, if Jesus was a man, he farted. All right, so what is going on in the capital? Who's trying to run the ship? The emperor at the time is this guy named Shenzong, and he looked like this. The farts of Turin. Oh, that's good times. I love how technical this Jesus fart talk has gotten into. Yeah, well, that's what we do here at Adventures in History. We have adventures in history. If Jesus pooted is an odd theological hill to die on, I'll die on that one. And it's not any more odd of a hill to die on than something called the place of the skull, which is a Jesus reference because Golgotha means the place of the skull. See how I looped that one back around? Anyway, this is Emperor Tang Shenzong, and he is the head of the government at the time. Now, what's up with this guy? He's the guy that's trying to hold things together. He takes over in 805, and the country is just not doing very great. Not doing so great at all. And the first thing that he's going to really try to do is end all of these rebellions or all of these little provincial civil wars. He's going to try to re-exert centralized control. And he's somewhat successful. Not completely successful, but somewhat successful. And one of the things that he tries to push as a way to kind of bring everybody together, right? He tries to really promote Buddhism. Look, if we all just get together and we all realize that we're all in the great vehicle and we're all trying to help each other move in the right direction, and if we do our thing, if we're all working towards the good of all and we're following our Dharma, we can get there. You want to come and see me? Come on. The puppy wants to come up. Come here. Come on. Oh, well, now you're just itching. What are you doing? Oh, you can't do that on stream. This is against TOS. Hey, are you going to come and see me? Are you going to come up here? She came up and I had my elbow like this, and she gave me like the little puppy nose on the elbow, which is hey, what are you doing? There are people watching. Well, come here. Come here. Come and see me. There you go. There's a puppy. Hello. Hello, puppy. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Hello, Kaylee. What are you doing? What are you doing? We gave her an edamame earlier to see if she would eat it. And she basically started trying to destroy the shell of it. She didn't actually eat it. She kept like biting it and picking it up and then dropping it. And then she eventually just decided, you know what? I'm going to destroy it. So she got it between her foot and the floor and then just started ripping it to pieces. So there's a little bit of free puppy for you. Xianzong, though, he is going to put all this stuff together, right? He's going to try to promote Buddhism. One of the things that he does as a way to sort of get on this Buddhism promotion thing, he somehow found what he claimed to be was the finger bone of Buddha, one of the phalanges of Buddha, and he brought it to one of the big public temples and was like, all right, everybody, let's go see Buddha's finger bone. And this is going to unite us. And we're going to recognize that we should be working together for the great of all. And we shouldn't be killing each other. And we should, do the good things and help the good people and build up the good stuff, because we don't want to come back as horrible creatures when we die and get reincarnated, right? And it didn't really go over as well as he wanted it to. It's about 50-50 on whether or not this actually accomplished anything other than him getting a footnote in history of the guy that showed off Buddha's finger bone. Whether or not it was actually Buddha's finger bone is actually really a big debate, considering that Buddha was burned. So maybe it survived, who knows. What's up, Braveland? I'm doing okay. I am mentally worn out. I am physically less tired than I was yesterday, but mentally scorched, right? If people have gotten bigger as diets have improved, then it's possible that the average fart tone has deepened over time. I think we also have to look at what sort of food they're eating, because different types of foods produce different kinds of farts, right? Because there's the meat farts and then there's the bean farts, and there's a lot more to it than just the amount that they're eating, right? Finger bone, I'm not laying down my arms for anything less than a femur. I need a long bone. I don't need some freaking phalange. Give me something that's hefty. Watching some videos of teachers dealing with students, I can only imagine what you go through these days. I'll be honest, most of the time it's not so bad. The discipline isn't really an issue unless you count not paying attention and staring at their cell phones. That does get annoying, and I do end up having to kick people out for playing on their cell phones. That's the worst thing. I've only ever had maybe one or two actual discipline issues where somebody cussed me out or somebody tried to get intimidating or violent or something like that. But most of the time it's just apathy, which has its own issues, but I've learned to sort of deal with that. I actually had much more discipline problem when I was teaching grade school than I have since I got into college. But I guess that kind of makes sense because I'm theoretically dealing with more mature people. Anyway, so Xianzong gets some stuff going. Things are going okay. But then he sort of gets wrapped up with this whole concept of living forever, right? He had won, he had gotten some victory, and he had done some good things, and people sort of were kind of getting back around towards being, respectful of the emperor. And then he decided, I kind of want to live forever. So he had some court alchemists that were mixing up these things that they called immortality pills. And he started taking these immortality pills, which, who knows what was actually in these things. And he died kind of suddenly. Now, did he die because he was, taking something that had mercury in it? This is quite possible. The Chinese thought that mercury was a symbol of eternal life because it would never evaporate and it would constantly move, right? So it was sort of representative of immortality. So could he have been taking mercury pills? Quite possibly. He would not be the first emperor of China to die from ingesting mercury. But there's another interesting theory, and I'll tell it to you after I sneeze here. Sorry about that. He could have also potentially been assassinated. We really don't know here. The court advisors in his palace were some really powerful eunuchs. And one of the themes of this century is going to be the court eunuchs want to run the show. And this is really going to be emblematic of the larger issue inside of China at this time. The bureaucratic positions in the government had become way powerful. And the reason you put eunuchs in these positions is because you did not want these positions to end up hereditary, right? Because if you start passing down this power from generation to generation, what you end up with are families or big clans that can then challenge the imperial clan. So you put eunuchs in the position so that they can't, pass on their position to their children because they're eunuchs, right? So it makes kind of logical sense if you're looking at it from that angle. But these people still had massive amounts of political and economic power. And Xianzong bringing peace to a lot of stuff meant that he was sort of on the upswing. Emperors prior to Xianzong had been much weaker because they didn't have a lot of this centralized power structure. And that meant that the eunuchs could run more stuff. But when Xianzong starts getting more powerful, it actually does kind of make sense that they might have just given him the old kibosh, right? But it's hard to say. Taking immortality pills, it sounds like something that Alex Jones would hawk to you in between telling you about how the government's going to turn frogs gay, right? Did you find that students tend to perk up when you cover an era depicted in mass media, be it movies or video games? I actually try to reference movies and TV shows and video games and music as frequently as possible, especially when I'm teaching sociology. We'll talk about a particular topic, and I will try everything that I can to reference something that is germane to their world. And I'll even go so far, for the last couple of years I've done this, I'll ask them, like, what's the TV shows that everybody that you talk to, are watching? What are the movies that you're all watching? What's the music that you're listening to? And then I'll go watch stuff. I've watched a lot of movies and TV shows and stuff like this just to try to get like some sort of connection with my students. And that works a little bit, but sometimes they just don't want to talk at all. And that's really troublesome because I expend a lot of energy trying to get them involved, and if they don't, that's kind of like, dumping water into a bottomless pit, right? Silver solution is quite possible. Water, it's nothing but ordinary water. Yeah, it's not LSD. Mercury poisoning is nothing to sneeze at. That's true. And Moose is just going to go ahead and give them the assassin. Sure, why not? I assume eunuch's speaking voice was high-pitched. Not necessarily. Except that eunuchs also don't have much else to do other than scheme and conspire against you. That's a fair point to make, Cave. Also, what's up, Cave? Good to see you. Have those in power seeking immortality ever ended up with good things happening? That's a great question, Kyle. I'd have to ponder that. There's not an immediate thing that comes to mind, but that doesn't mean no. I'd have to sort of do thought process to see if I could figure out if I could come up with a specific example of, I want to be immortal and I did good things. That's a great question. What's up, Uncle Bill? How's it going? Maybe some people in the middle 18th dynasty of Egypt, maybe Tutmosis III. I don't know. I'd have to ponder that one. That's a deeper one than it might seem on the surface. All right, so either way, whether or not he got assassinated, he could have gotten assassinated. Xianzong is gone. And what happens then? Well, things start falling apart, right? He's sort of the last good emperor for a while. Hey you, Xianzong took immortality pills to live forever, but you won't live long if you stop paying attention. No, I don't like threatening the lives of my students. I think I'm immortal. I've had no evidence to the contrary so far. That's fair, Vipers. That's fair. You haven't even died once yet, so I hope that you don't die at all. Maybe we all figure out how to download our brains into computers by the time that we're dead. Or by the time that we would normally die. Who knows? Maybe Elon Musk has got his brain transfer thing working by then. Or maybe he tried it on himself and died suddenly in a horrible accident because he doesn't actually understand the science that he hawks. He just hopes that other people that he throws large money piles at can actually explain things better than he does in a way that he could actually understand it so that he could stand on a stage and take credit for all of it. But that's just a slanted opinion, perhaps a bit biased in my side. But you know how it goes. Anyway, a lot of the territory up in the northern part of China during this time is going to start falling away, especially this stuff over here that's on the border with, again, Tibet, and over here in this region. Now, some of this stuff is actually going to kind of form their own little world. There's a little state right around in here that's called the Khitans. They're going to kind of break away and make their own little world. We're going to see sort of a general chaotic atmosphere in this northern part of China. And that's one thing that I want to sort of start now making a trend that's going to last into the next stream or so. I know that everybody's going to remember all of this because, again, you all immediately understand and recollect everything that I say on these streams all the time. You have instantaneous flash memory of all of this stuff, and next time we come back to China, you'll remember exactly where we left off. But that being said, again, this northern part of China starts being rather rebellious. And it had been for a little while, but this is the point where they're really going to start kind of even maybe considering themselves not Chinese. And that's an important step because the next really big world that we go through is pretty much just going to be South China with the Song Empire. But that's, again, a little bit down the road. Anyway, it's just a theory, a game. You're right, exactly. So we're going to lose up with the stuff in the north. A lot of these territorial provinces are going to regain independence. We're going to have two rulers that are really, really short and don't actually make a big impact. We've got this guy, who's Emperor Muzong. He only reigns for 4 years. He had a stroke and didn't make it through. So he was out playing polo. Polo had made its way over from Central Asia, and the Chinese emperors had just really picked up and started loving polo. So he was playing polo, and one of his buddies died in an unfortunate polo accident, and he was so heartbroken at this point that he had a stroke mid-polo match. So one guy died, and then the emperor has a stroke. And then he gets a little bit better, and then he has another stroke and dies. But anyway, he is really only ruling for about 4 years. Playing polo and had a stroke. Sounds typical, right? So Muzong, only around for about 4 years, has a stroke and dies. Then we get this guy. My guy Wuzong died over polo. Stroke. That's the thing about ancient Chinese sources. We don't know because they probably couldn't tell the difference between heart attack and stroke. The word that we translated into English is stroke. This is Jingzong, the next guy, and I chose this particular picture for reasons of chunky nature that you can probably point out here. This is him playing polo. He did not die in a polo accident. There's a really funny story. He was not particularly liked. The eunuchs especially didn't care for him. And at one point, he was getting up a Chongqi horse. I like that, Vipers. I like that. I've never heard of someone having a stroke over psychological stress, but I also haven't looked into it. It's got a polo or a flower on it. So these are flowers as decorations. It's not a Rudolph nose. It's flowers on the trailer here and on the harness. Anyway, he only rules for 3 years, and the story goes like this. At one point, he was sitting around at dinner with a whole bunch of the eunuchs, and somebody knocked over the candelabra, and it got really dark, and he was on his way to the bathroom. So he was kind of walking down one of the corridors by himself, and the eunuchs were like, "It's a perfect time to kill him." So they killed him in the dark on the way to the toilet, which is a pretty bad way to go. But this is our second assassination in three emperors, if that makes any sense. Dang it, I thought the horse was humorous. Why is he fighting with a wooden spoon? He's playing polo. This is a polo mallet. Quick Googling, to my surprise, emotional/psychological stress does appear to be able to trigger a stroke. Well, there we go. Thank you for doing the psychological analysis of that for us, Moose. I didn't know. I say the words that they say in the sources. So we've got two emperors. They die in the span of about 7 years. They don't do very well. I really don't want to die while having to pee. So uncomfortable, right? We don't know what he was going to do. He might have been having to go number 2. Don't think about that one over too much, right? So maybe that's why they knew where he was going, because he had left an air biscuit as he floated out of the room, and they, got crop dusted, and that's why they went and grabbed him in the hallway when the lights went out. Or maybe that's why the lights went out in the first place. He was trying to light the fart on fire. We don't know. It's only recorded that the lights went out and he was on the way to the bathroom. So if we're going to make everything about a fart, we may as well make everything about a fart, right? So we've got two pretty bad rulers, and then we have kind of like the last good ruler of the Tang Dynasty, and his name is Wenzong, and he's this guy. Apologies for the bad pictures. A lot of these people don't have the world's best photos. That's just the way that we go. But this is Emperor Wenzong. That's why I'm starving myself for 5 hours before I die. Don't ask about semantics. There we go. You are like the men of the first age in Tolkien. You just know when you're going to die, and you can die at your given moment. Like, all right, I'm going to die tomorrow. Nothing stinky for the next 24 hours. So what's up with Wenzong? Oh no, he's not I'm sorry, Wenzong's not the last good one. Wuzong is the last good one. I'm getting myself out of order here because I'm talking too much about farts. Wenzong's not that great. Wenzong rules from 827 to 840, and he's kind of a catastrophe. He ends up having to surrender land to Tibet. They sort of demand territory from China, and China can't really do very much about it, so they have to kind of give it up. He has a lot of trouble trying to control the nobility because none of them are really paying attention to them. And so he ends up having a lot of the nobility arrested, and then he has a fair portion of them killed just because, it's what you do when you're a weak ruler and you have to look strong. You just kill a whole bunch of people. He ends up also having a stroke. He was also potentially taking immortality pills. The eunuchs spread a rumor that he was taking immortality pills. So we really don't know what happened to this guy. But when he dies, finally, he kind of hangs on there for a little while after the stroke. But when he dies, the eunuchs are actually going to pick his successor. So, that's a pretty big piece of evidence that you're not really in control to begin with. When you don't even get to nominate and designate your own successor, the court eunuchs just decide who's going to be the next emperor. You're not even really in charge. So, all right. Now, they put this kid emperor on the throne, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on here. It's kind of messy. But the next big sort of event here in China is actually not really something that a lot of people talk about or know about, but it's kind of an interesting phase. So we need to talk a little bit about Buddhism in China, specifically Buddhism under the Tang Dynasty. So the Tang Dynasty emperors, going all the way back to the 600s when the Tang Dynasty took over, they had been really, really big patrons of Buddhism. Buddhism is going to flourish in China under the Tang Dynasty. China becomes sort of the center power of Buddhism. And we've already talked about multiple other situations where even people from other countries are coming to China to learn these Buddhist teachings. What is up with the bots this week? I've had more bots in like the last 3 or 4 streams than I've had probably in the last 5 or 6 months. Anyway, so Buddhism was really, really big. Because I destroyed them. I dropped that ban hammer on those jokers. So this is a big deal. Anyway, it had become a central theme of the government. A lot of the other people had, or a lot of the other countries, they were not a bot. They were totally a bot. So, are you pretending to be a bot? Is that what Mr. Destructoid is for? Anyway, stop banning us. Anyway, where was I? And Buddhism is important. Big and important. Now, one of the things that had happened because of this sort of symbiotic relationship with big, powerful Buddhist leaders and the government was that a lot of the big Buddhist monasteries and temples were acting under tax-exempt status. Now, this is not something particularly new in the ancient world. There were plenty of examples of the official religious temples and things like that operating outside of the tax structure. So this isn't new. But what is sort of interesting about this is the Buddhist network of temples and monasteries inside of China had become just fabulously wealthy. I mean, like, think, Vatican Museum kind of wealthy. These monasteries had priceless works of art. They had all sorts of gold and silver implements. They had all kinds of really high-priced luxury items that were all over the temples and monasteries and things like that. And what's going to be... This is going to kind of be part of their downfall here, because we're about to start into a period of time where there's a lot of government-sanctioned religious persecution. So here's how this kind of goes. Well, the government is going to decide we need more money, right? The government was broke. It was just broke. The series of emperors, the series of bad emperors had bankrupted the country. Even the salt trade wasn't even bringing in that much money anymore because the black market had kind of overwhelmed the government economy. The territory was falling apart. Lots of these border zones were declaring independence. This is going to cut down on things like the number of people in an army. There's a lot of stuff here that's messy. The government was Baroque. Da-da-da-da-da-da. So, what do we got? Who do we got? Who's going to fix it? Well, there's this guy named Wu Zong who thinks that he's the answer. Wu Zong looks like this. Now, why does he think that he's the answer? Well, here's a story. At one point, Emperor Wu Zong here is trying to figure out how to fix China, right? He's in charge, at least in name. He doesn't have a whole bunch of actual power. He's sort of being puppeted by various eunuch figures. He's also, broke, and he's also not particularly what we might call effective when it comes to making leadership decisions. But he's on the throne from 840 to 846. And at one point, he runs into this Taoist priest. And he asks this priest, like, hey, look, you're a priest, right? How do we fix all of this stuff? And we don't exactly know whether or not this was created as a metaphor or if this actually happened. But supposedly, what the Taoist priest says is the reason China's in such bad shape is that China has forgotten its original religions and its original traditions. And specifically here, what Wuzong sort of hears in this message is we need to go back to Confucianism and Taoism. Not effective at making leadership decisions seems to be a common malady. Well, again, this guy got chosen by the eunuchs to be put in charge. So they're not going to pick the most capable person because they want somebody that they can poke or push around, right? But Wuzong decides, okay, what we need to do is we need to make China great again. We need to get rid of all of these outside influences. We need to go back to when the times were good. We need to bring back the old time religion. We need to push out all of this new wave foreign thought. Expel all of these people that are causing us trouble. You know, the old populist, like super conservative approach to fixing things, right? We need to get back to the way that it used to be. And that thinking always works out well. Yet 1 hour in, and not a single mention of RZA or Method Man. Or Jizza, or Ghostface Killer, or Old Dirty ODB. We can just say ODB, right? Because I don't know if I could say that one without breaking the rule of me not cussing. Confucius rules everything around me. Tao get the money. Dollar bills, y'all, right? Anyway, so he's going to start persecuting Buddhism. Now, there's a big debate here. There's a big debate here. And the debate goes like this. Did he just want their money? Or did he actually think that they were bad? And we don't really know. Because again, these Buddhist temples were fabulously wealthy. And one of the things that he starts doing is trying to cut down on the number of people that qualify to be monks. Because if he can run some of these monasteries out of business, he can claim all of their stuff. So he starts limiting. In 842, there are some edicts that say that anybody that used to be a criminal that's been convicted of a crime can no longer be a monk. So you have to leave the monk order that you're in. Or if you are someone that has been formerly accused of sorcery, you can no longer be a monk. And you go, why is that even a big deal? Well, you have to remember that one of the sort of ways to get out of the death penalty in China was to go join a monastery. So you could get convicted of a crime, and they could go, well, we could kill you, or you could go live in this monastery and do good for the rest of your life. And a lot of people were like, yes, I'll take monastery, please. So by denying them, ex-criminals and sorcerers, that's a potentially large chunk of monks inside of China. But this doesn't go far enough, and what he ends up doing basically is just issuing a big series of orders in 845 that just starts closing temples. Like, here's a list of temples and monasteries that are just going to close because Buddhism is bad. It comes from outside China. We need to get back to Confucianism and Taoism. These are the religions that we came up with. These are the teachings and the morals that are Chinese, not something from India, not something from Korea or Japan, not something from Tibet. We're going to do Chinese religion. And what this does is it gives him a ton of money. And it also frees up a lot of land because especially these monasteries were in charge of big chunks of territory that they were running as farms as a way to support the monastery. And the way that Wuzong sort of tilts this is that people in China were hurting, right? And what they really needed, they needed land. They needed to be able to farm for themselves. So he was going to close these monasteries that had been hoarding the land. And he was going to give this land to the people. He's going to redistribute this land to the poor. And he did do some of that. He also gave a lot of it to his supporters and the nobility that were on his side. But, got to keep up appearances. So all the monks were criminals, and they wondered why the monasteries had all the money. They wanted something authentically Chinese, like fortune cookies or General Tso's chicken. Right, exactly. The original China. So he just starts closing all this stuff down. He has this, and this is sort of like, oh, it's kind of so painful because it sounds so modern, like something on a particular political party would say, that it sort of hurts. But he says that one of the reasons he is shutting down these Buddhist temples and these monasteries is because that they demanded so much from the people, right? You're supposed to go give offerings, and you're supposed to donate to help keep the temple up and the monastery up. And if you didn't do that, they would shame you and guilt you. And he says that he's doing this to free the populace from the burden of these greedy people. Look at how much money that they're hoarding, and they're demanding you give them more, or your soul's going to rot, right? It's remarkably similar to stuff that we hear today in politics. Just shrouded in this whole religious imagery here. He also goes after other religions, specifically Christianity. There was a nascent to growing community of Nestorian Christians, especially in the northwestern part of China. That's up in sort of this region right over here, sort of like the outlet part where the Silk Road pops into mainland China. They all get shut down. Zoroastrianism was in China, and it had actually spread from the same region right around here, kind of into the north and a little bit over here into the west. They're all shut down. And what's really interesting here is that Wuzong says that Christianity and Zoroastrianism are really just perverted versions of Buddhism, right? So he clearly doesn't even understand the differences between these religions. He's just doing all that thing like, oh, they're all just bad because they're not ours. They're not our religion, so they got to go. That they're extra Chinese philosophy. We don't need that junk here. So he targets a lot of this stuff. One interesting thing is, and we can learn just about as much of this because of the absence as we can if he had said something about it. He doesn't say anything about Islam. And we know that Islam had contact with China during this time because we have multiple records of trade between China and some of the big Muslim powers. But he doesn't say anything about or make any edicts about Islam. So what we can sort of interpret from that is if there were converted Chinese Muslims, they were not a big enough population to sort of cause any trouble. Or be big enough to have a target on their backs. There probably weren't many Muslims, if any, in China at this time. If they were probably down here on this southern coastline. The southern coast at this particular time period had become a really, really important trade center. The Chinese trading ships had started moving all over this Southeastern Asian island chain, and we're trading all over India, and even as far away over here as to directly with places like Iran and the Arabian Peninsula, and even here into the Red Sea. So China had a lot of port cities down here that were really, really important. And if there were Muslims, they were likely to be here because some of these cities had kind of what we might call like a metropolitan or a cosmopolitan kind of ethnic makeup. We weren't talking here about like double-digit percentages of people from particular ethnic groups, but if you were walking down the street of, one of the big cities down here, and you saw a Muslim person, that might not be that shocking. Whereas if you were, somewhere over here, like around Chang'an, the capital, you probably weren't going to see anybody that was Muslim. But anyway, that's just an interesting little kind of tidbit. So this is really going to have a pretty big impact on the religious makeup of China. Zoroastrianism completely, we can't ever necessarily say completely, but is virtually wiped out of China during this time. Buddhism doesn't go completely away, but it is significantly diminished. Christianity sort of goes underground. It's mostly damaged. It doesn't really come back again until really the Mongol Empire. When the Mongols take over China and establish the Yuan Dynasty, there's a little bit of a Christian revival at that point. What happened to Zoroastrians? I keep hearing about them in history books, but only in passing. I mean, they're still around today. There's thousands and thousands of people that are still Zoroastrian. The vast majority of them today live in Iran and Central Asia. There's a little bit over here in Azerbaijan. There might be a fractional populace over here in Armenia, but really probably not that many. If I had to guess, I would say Azerbaijan would probably have maybe, I don't know, man. That's even hard to say. But so over here in Azerbaijan, there are some in Iran, especially around the Caspian Sea. This region right here has got quite a bit of Zoroastrian activity. Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan have some. This part of Kazakhstan maybe has a little bit, and there I think are a little bit over here in Afghanistan, but the Taliban might have completely run all of them out in the last couple of years or so. I don't know if there are any remaining Zoroastrian fire temples in Afghanistan, but I don't think that there are. There are several temples of Zoroastrianism here in America. The closest one to me is the one in Texas, and I would really, really love to go see it. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere of Texas, though. You would have to go see it. Like, you'd have to make a special trip out there. But Zoroastrianism has been around for a long time, going all the way. Well, it depends on when you think Zoroaster lived, or Zarathustra, whichever way you want to call him. There's a little bit of a debate as to exactly what time period he lived. Now, some people say he didn't live at all, but somewhere between 3,000 and 2,500 years, we've had Zoroastrianism. And for a while, they were really, really big. That was the official religion of the Persian Empire. Yeah. So there are 3 of them in Los Angeles. And I'd love to go to one of those. So if I do manage to get out to California over the summer to do some research on Native American stuff, getting to a fire temple would be pretty cool to do. Yeah, I quite like Zoroastrianism. It's got a pretty interesting theology. If you want to know more, Blue, we've done an entire stream on Zoroastrianism. Let me pull my file up and I'll see if I can find where it was, and you can go back and watch the VOD of it. Where am I? What would that be? Here. Wow. It's Adventures in History number 24. It's 104 episodes ago. Holy crap. Have we been doing this that long? Wow. That's crazy. That was August of 2020. Wow. No, September of 2020. Holy crap, man. That's insane. Thank you all. Thank you all for hanging around, man. It still blows my mind that this whole thing works. That's crazy. Anyway, before I get emotional, you feel old. I hear ya. What is time anymore, though, right? I'm just here to throw stuff at Uncle Bill. That's fair. So Bigger Blue, if you go to my my main page, you click on videos.
and then there's a drop-down menu that says, how do you want to view these? If you pick collections, there's a collection specifically for Adventures in History. And it's going to be Adventures in History Volume 1. And they should be in numerical order. So you just scroll through until you find the one for Zoroastrianism. And it's number 24. So you can check that out. You came in with Amanda Conda. Oh man, Amanda Conda is great. She's not streaming so much anymore. And I understand that was for personal reasons. And I completely support that because getting harassed online and mental health is... Getting harassed online sucks. And mental health is way more important than streaming. If you have any contact with Amanda Conda, tell her I hope that she's doing well. And I mean that absolutely sincerely. She's a great person. And while I do miss her streams, I completely understand why she's not streaming anymore. And I absolutely support that to the hilt, right? Someone left me a comment on the YouTube VOD of Philosophy Roulette 2 last week. You just passed 400. Noger, that's amazing. That's crazy, man. Congratulations, dude. That's insane. So, like, if you read at least 2 papers per stream, that's 800 papers that you've read. And I know sometimes you do like 3 papers per stream. That's crazy. Crazy. If you're not already following Noger, go follow Noger. That guy is smart as crap, and he'll make you smarter. We've got some other people in the room, too. We got Lumpy in the room, who will also make you smarter and amaze you with Minecraft skills. We've got Cave Geek in the room, who will also make you smarter and also make you more of a smart butt. I really wish I could curse more on stream here. And there's Emmy. And go follow Emmy because she'll make you more compassionate. And she's like the conscience of Twitch because she's nice like that. And she'll also say things that are very, very honest. And you can't really fault her for that because, you know, it's true. It's true. I count per paper, not per stream. So it's like 200 streams. Gotcha. Okay, cool. But still, 400 papers, that's crazy. You're on our Discord. You haven't been there in a bit, but you'll let her know. Thank you, Bigger Blue. Appreciate that. Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. Emmy also is responsible for... yeah. I follow you on Instagram, too. And I know that I don't react a lot with Instagram. Like, I don't give the little hearts things or give the comments things. But I enjoy going through your Instagram post thingies, the little video things that you do, because it reminds me that there are people that give a crap in the world. Anyway, you should go follow Color by Emmy because she does awesome art and animation and stuff like that, but also because she's just a genuinely good person. So, yeah, I support that. You enjoy the seal content? That's fair tuna. It's very happy seal content, right? Okay, so Wuzong does his thing, and he's not a good person. He gets the stink eye from history, right? What about this guy, Xuanzong? This guy. He's really it. If we're talking about what's the last point where we can look at the Tang Empire or the Tang Dynasty and go, hey man, that emperor was in charge and he did things. He's pretty much it. And he rules from 846 to 859. And basically the first thing that he does when he comes into power is, we're going to stop this persecution of Buddhism. It's dumb. We're just going to stop it. He also issues a general amnesty to anybody that had been charged for crimes by the previous emperor. So we're just like, that guy was kind of off his rocker. If you got convicted of a crime or sent into exile or, put in jail, you're okay. We're going to let you go. But here's something interesting. The general amnesty goes out. Everybody's going to go, okay, we're fine. And persecution is publicly over. Okay, cool. But he doesn't give back the money. He doesn't turn back over all of the stuff. And he's like, well, we already took it, and they had already melted down a lot of that stuff to make, coins, and they had already used a lot of that and kind of bought stuff with the expected payment in the future. So we're going to let you out of jail, and we're not going to kill you anymore, and you can go back to worshiping and doing your thing, but we're not really going to give you your stuff back. Shipping and handling fees, right? Possession is 9/10. Least shocking move in history. Right? I've got a giant pile of gold. What do I do with it? Do I give it back? No. Right? He doesn't return all the stuff. But what's really interesting about this is he gets remembered pretty well in history. He takes a lot of justice into his own hands, which sometimes turns out to be a really horrible thing. Like when you end up with a crazy emperor and is like, I'm going to run the justice system by fiat, that can go really badly. But Xuanzang actually seems to have wanted to do that to cut down on a lot of the corruption. And he ended up getting involved a lot directly with some of these judicial decisions and things like that. And it seems like he actually tried to be fair, because we have historical records where it was like, it'll even say stuff like, one of his friends who was a governor did something illegal, and Xuanzang disciplined him in front of everybody. And, that's telling when even the historians in time go, that dude was he was on the level. It didn't matter who you were. If you did something wrong, he's going to come after you. It's also kind of shocking that you have that as a rarity, right? Like, oh man, this guy's remembered because he told people not to do bad stuff. But it wasn't just the people that he hated. He told everybody not to do bad stuff and then backed it up. Kind of a weird thing, right? So that is actually kind of a shocking move in history. We're going to apply the law evenly across everybody, including nobility and including people that I like. So it's kind of interesting that this guy gets remembered as this sort of fair and just ruler, because he makes a lot of people really upset. But it's that kind of upset where you can't even really hold it against him because he's actually doing the right kind of thing. He's even going to be able to turn some of the tide back around, right? He ends up taking some of the land that China had lost to Tibet back to China. He has a really big war where he successfully goes out and conquers some of the territory that they had lost. This is actually really interesting here. This is a painting that was on the wall of a cave, this place called Dunhuang. And what's particularly interesting about this cave is that there were all of these big murals on the walls. So this is a battle. You see the big battle standards and the people in armor, and they're riding on their super chonky horses. Look at the chonk on that guy. That's a hind quarter right there, buddy. That's a badonk and a half, right? But dun, 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 dun. Blank page. Thanks so much for that follow, and welcome to the adventure. I love the fact that you hit follow when I was showing a horse's butt, and I'm totally in my head going to write the story that the reason you followed is because I was talking about how chonky this horse's butt is. So what you're telling me by Pavlovian response is that I need more chonky horse butt content on stream. Welcome, Blank Page, and I hope that you feel comfortable enough to participate in chat at whatever level you desire. We're pretty laid back here. Nothing's necessarily off topic. You can see the little disclaimer thing that I put. You hit follow while the commercial was still playing. I'll take it anyway, Blank Page. Welcome in. I hope that you're having a good one, my friend. Anyway, so this is, again, at a big cave called Dunhuang. And the entire cave is full of these big murals, and what's particularly interesting about this is they sealed the cave up, and archaeologists only found these murals not too long ago, and they're really, really well preserved because apparently whatever they did to seal the cave up kept a lot of moisture out, because a lot of this stuff is, it's all natural paint and pigment stuff. So you can see a couple of places where it's kind of flaking off and cracking. But again, this mural here would have come from a period of time in about 848. So this is about 1,300 years old, and it's still in remarkably good shape for something that old that hasn't been preserved with modern technology, right?
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus. Tuna with just the Spartacus. Tuna. Again, the generosity is much appreciated. Thank you so much, my friend. And as always, the nobility on stream here. Everybody's Spartacus. Blank page, I know who you are now. If you are the blank page that hangs out in Emmy's stream, I know who you is. Anyway, welcome. So, Xuanzang, he's a pretty good dude, doing some good stuff, living the good life, keeping China on the right. But everybody dies. And in 859, he dies. And he dies of natural causes, but he did. And we can't say very much good stuff about the people following him. We can make some generalities, though. So what's up with them? Well, pretty much constant rebellion. The emperors are going to range for the next 50 years somewhere between completely incompetent to utterly disinterested. There are some of the emperors that literally just take the job because they know that they're not going to have to do anything. Because who's running the country? If you guessed the eunuchs, you guessed right. Significant collateral damage to the population in multiple ways. First off, these constant rebellions are going to mean we need soldiers. So there's going to be a lot of impressment into the army. So you're drafted into the rebel army, whether you like it or not. This means that there's going to be a shortage of workers, which means that they're not going to grow as much food. Also, standing armies need a lot of food, which causes really big famine that kicks off in the 50s and runs through most of the 860s. This is going to turn into subsequent peasant rebellions, where bands of starving people are going to start roaming around the countryside looking for whatever food that they can get. There are also no soldiers in the area to put down these peasant rebellions because they're all fighting in these other rebellions against the emperor. The 860s and 870s are really, really bad in China. Specifically, by the time we get to 878, there is a particularly bad rebellion called the Huangqiao Rebellion. This one's rough. It starts in 878 and goes into 879. Huangqiao was one of these provisional movies. I bet some great kung fu movies come from this era. You mean they made movies about this era, or they made movies during this era? Because I don't think that they had very good film studios in China at that time. Mostly just like stage theater. Dude, it's like, I don't know. I'm just being a joke. I don't actually know if they have made any movies about this particular period. I couldn't tell you. But Huangqiao Rebellion This guy is one of these big generals. He has a lot of power, and his rebellion is going to just absolutely wreck China. And what's important about this one is most of these rebellions had been fighting, again, up here in the northern part of China. So north of the big old river systems, right? So we've got these rivers that kind of demarcate southern China from northern China. Most of the big rebellions are going to be up here. But the Huang Chao rebellion comes across the river and comes down here into the more densely populated parts of China. This is bad stuff. When you've got these rebels, they come in, they burn whole cities. There's going to be some targeting of non-Chinese ethnic minorities. So Huang Chao is Han Chinese, and a lot of these rebellions had been people that were in China that had been given power by the Chinese government, but they weren't Han Chinese. They were some other different ethnic group. Largely speaking, they got the title Jedushi, which was non-Han Chinese person that actually has political power because the emperor said so. But this guy was Han Chinese, and he kind of had a chip on his shoulder from all of these other non-Chinese people. And there's some, well, let me put it this way. There's a lot of speculation here that one of the things that this guy was doing was trying to get rid of people that weren't Han Chinese. So is this evidence of an ancient ethnic cleansing attempt? There's a good case that can be made for yes. Can we say it conclusively? Not really, because there's a lot of ethnic hatred going along at this time, because the rebels that were causing a lot of this trouble were, again, they're not Han Chinese in many situations. So it could have been that some historian that was writing this down tried to clean up the image of Huang Chao because he was a big rebel, and they may have said, oh, he was targeting those non-Chinese people. This wasn't a rebellion against the emperor. He was trying to get rid of the bad guys. So this could have been a post hoc attempt at somehow saving this rebellion. I don't know. There's so many questions that we just don't know the answers to from this time period. But anyway, it's a big old mess. When the rebellion gets down into the southern part of China, this is just going to wreak absolute havoc. And the chain of command is going to just start utterly failing. The emperors are going to be cut off from being able to contact any of their governors because the capital actually gets put under siege. We have generals and eunuchs acting under complete autonomous control. And at one point, we end up with this sort of string of ongoing assassination where eunuchs are killing other eunuchs, and generals are killing other generals, and generals are killing eunuchs, and eunuchs are killing generals, and everybody's killing everybody. It just goes just bonkers crazy. Like the 880s in China is assassin central. It's really, really nasty politics. And a few thousand years off with this question, or I'm a few thousand years off with this question, but I once watched a reaction to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon by an ABC. I apologize, Vipers. I don't know the abbreviation for ABC or what ABC is an abbreviation for. Could you give me some information, or could you teach me what that means? Because I don't actually know. American-born Chinese. Okay, cool. Thank you. A reaction by American-born Chinese. He was able to tell it was set in the Qing Dynasty purely by Chow Yun-fat's haircut. Is that only true of the Qing Dynasty, or do other eras have their own special dues? I don't know. That's a great question, and I do not know the answer to that. Chinese hairdos. I'm trying to think of any other reference that I know of to specific Chinese hairdos. There might have been some. There might have been some stuff under Qin Shi Huang back in the Qin Dynasty, because he was a really big totalitarian dictator. He may have done some weird stuff like that. I don't know though. I couldn't tell you. And I would like for this to go down as, again, I'm perfectly capable of saying I don't know. I really, and I'm not saying that to like virtue signal. I'm saying that as evidence to other people that do history to show that I'm not dying. Right? There are some people in the historical field that think if you say I don't know, you suddenly cease to exist, and that really pisses me off. Don't make up crap if you don't know what it is. It's more of a "I'm coming for you" kind of statement instead of a virtue signal. Anyway, I could tell that Terminator is set in the 80s by Linda Hamilton's haircut. The plethora of bangs is evident, right? What do we do if we're China? Well, we hope that our emperors are competent and capable, and we end up with a new emperor named Zhao Zhong. And then we ask, is he capable? Is he competent? And the answer, no. Nobody ever goes retros with hairstyles in a generation later. Maybe. I don't know if bangs are coming back around, but a lot of stuff from the 80s is kind of coming back around. 80s and early 90s is kind of making a comeback. The grunge look is kind of coming back with the super duper ripped up jeans and the band t-shirts. Band t-shirts are a very, very popular thing now with students. And I get really excited because they'll come into class and they'll be wearing a Soundgarden t-shirt. And I'm like, oh, holy crap, that's great. You like Soundgarden? And they're like, no, I just think the t-shirt's cool. And I get very sad. Black hole sun, won't you come and wash away the pain? Haven't seen anyone go into a full 80s hairstyle. Nobody wants that. Yeah, Tad, I feel you. I feel you, man. Very like the sad dude in this piece. Zhao Zong, I don't know if he looks sad or not. Maybe he just looks like, I don't know what he looks like. An emperor. Anyway, what's up with him? He decides, I'm going to end the fighting. Like, okay, cool, dude. What are you going to do? How are you going to end the fighting? And he's like, I'm going to go conquer all of the Jedushi. I'm going to bring them back under my control. And we're like, okay, let's go do it. And he launches about 5 or 6 campaigns against 5 or 6 different rebels, and he loses all of them. He loses all of them. All of them. He looks very tired. He probably was very tired. Apparently there's a set time for retro, 30 years. That's why we're now moving into the 90s nostalgia. Chris Cornell is sorely missed. Agreed. If you are feeling like there's nobody to talk to, reach out to somebody, right? There are people who care about you, even if you don't think that there are. And I care about you, even if I don't really know you very well. You're always welcome to reach out if you need somebody to talk to, right? Conquering everybody is a great way to end the violence, right? You just go kill all of them, and then they can't rebel against you. Makes total sense, right? So he goes and tries to fight all these territorial provincial governors, and he loses all of his fights. And all this does is serve to reinforce the idea that the emperor sucks. And it gets him so weak that he ends up getting run out of the capital. And you go, oh, did an army come down and attack him and run him out of the capital? No, he gets run out of the capital by his own eunuchs. They got sick of him just being a figurehead, and they were just like, we're going to kill you. And he's like, well, you can't kill me. I'm the emperor. And they're like, we don't really care. You're useless. And he has to escape. And he has to run over into a neighboring province and sort of throw himself on the mercy of one of his own governor supporters who was like, yeah, sure, I'll help you out. And then the dude, the emperor shows up at this guy's castle and he's like, so you're going to give me your army and let me go fight these people, right? And the governor's like, no, I'm holding you hostage. It was a total joke. I'm holding you hostage, and you're gonna issue edicts in my name now. And it doesn't go great for Jiaozong. No Balkan talk tonight. I already took my aspirin. No, we're not talking about the Balkans tonight. That's next viewer request stream, which will be not this coming Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. Not this one, but the next one. I don't. What day is that? So next Tuesday is the 31st. That'll be February the 7th. February the 7th. I have missed a question because I missed the start. What defined eunuchs in these times? They were without reproductive organs. The reason that they were in positions of power within the government is because the emperors had decided that they did not want to make positions inside of the government hereditary. So you put a eunuch in the spot, that means they can't turn this into something that they pass down to their sons because they ain't having sons, right? But of course that makes them sort of cutthroat and out for whatever they can get during their lifetime, including imperial control if they can get it, right? But welcome in, Dan Karen, and always okay to ask questions. Always okay. Always okay. I really like the questions. All right, so we're going to have to end there because while Jiaozong doesn't die, he does get run out in the year 900. And what that means is we have to stop the story. Now we'll pick back up with Jiaozong next time we come back around because he's got kind of more of a... He's got one more try. It doesn't go so great. That makes sense. Where they made... do you mean, like, did they forcibly emasculate these people? Yeah, they would remove their testicles and penis. They were forced into this. They weren't, like... Most of these people were highly educated individuals, but they had been castrated probably as like prepubescent children. No, they lost everything, Vipers. It was a clean cut. So there we go. So what are we looking at? Yeah, so you could theoretically put them into a position of political power, and you didn't have to worry about them sleeping with the Empress. You didn't have to worry about them having kids and then trying to pass down their power to their children because they weren't going to have children. Oh, okay. I see. It was a metaphorical thing. I got you. I'm on board now. I apologize that I missed that joke. So, yeah, you could theoretically put these people in power because they were going to be temporary. Sometimes they were considered slave-typed individuals, but that was not really something that caught on very well. All of this talk about eunuchs is talking your stomach to turn. Well, well, unless other people have questions, we're probably pretty much done with that. So, general trends for the 800 to 900 period of time in China. What's going on here? Port cities. I cannot stress enough how much these port cities are going to become a big deal, especially these port cities that line the southern part of China down here. When the trade gets wrecked in the north because of all of this fighting, trade is going to continue from the south, especially on ships going down all over the Southeastern Asian region, Indian Peninsula, over here into the Arabian area, even to the coast of Africa, right? These port cities are going to become essential for Chinese money making. When the world is going crazy up here because of rebellion, these cities are mostly going to remain untouched. by the way, one of the reasons Huang Chao's rebellion was so bad is that he got down here and he burned and sacked one of these port cities, and people were just like, holy crap, like, you're not supposed to mess with this. This is kind of sacrosanct territory, right? Again, this goes all the way over to Arabia, that they have this stuff. Broadly speaking, China is going to lose influence over its neighbors. So China had been, for about 200 years, a really big cultural gravity field in this area. And they had pushed Korean culture and Chinese culture and Southeastern Asian culture around, even Tibetan culture and Central Asian culture. They had exported their ideas, they had exported their government styles and their religious ideology and their artistic stuff and their architectural stuff. They had basically been the dominant power. And they're still going to be an important dominant power, or an important power, but they're not going to be as big as they used to be. And part of this is because, again, with all of this turmoil and all of this chaos going on, they really don't have enough time to do a lot of this stuff. But they are still going to have some time to do some things. So let me show you this. This is a porcelain vase from this particular time period. So this is 9th century porcelain vase. This is where we start seeing the origin of what we call fine china. And this is kind of from around this period of time. So despite the fact that there's so much crazy stuff going on, they still had artisans that were working on really high-level fine luxury items. I mean, I don't know how well you all can see this stuff, but there are these really great etchings on the core on the surface of this vase here. It's really, really pretty. And clearly with multiple layers of glaze with multiple colors to give it a shine underground and sort of this greenish color on top. Really, really pretty stuff like this. So there's still a really big cultural push to do stuff like this. And we do see this stuff showing up on the trade market, but it's just not as much as it used to be. It's not as broadly separated and stuff, right? You don't see this popping up as frequently all over the place as you might see some other stuff from different periods of time. You can't kill the porcelain will live on, right? It kind of will. Political unrest tried to kill the porcelain, but it couldn't. That's fair. It's kind of true. But China's not going to be doing so great. My fine china says Tupperware on it. Well, you're one up on me, Moose. Mine comes from... Okay, so my fine china is actually from a Chinese restaurant, because when we get Chinese takeout, they come in these plastic containers that we just keep. And we've got stacks of these like rectangular plastic containers and stacks of these circular containers that soup comes in. That's our fine china. And we use those for storage all the time. My wife just used several of them. My wife made some sushi for herself tonight, and sort of made herself several little bento boxes, and they're these little Chinese takeout tray things. Hecho en China. Yeah, so exactly. They're all made in China. My fine china says IKEA. Hey, nothing wrong with that. I technically didn't pay for mine specifically. I paid for mine by paying for Chinese food. And I'm not going to lie. I will be completely honest. We give a lot of those away at Christmas time typically, because typically speaking, I'll make a bunch of candy and my wife will make a bunch of cookies, and we'll just load those into these little containers. And they're about yay big, about that deep. And we'll just load them up and give them out to everybody. And then I'll notice sometimes, like, we're kind of running low. We should go get some Chinese food. Right? And we'll just kind of replenish the stock. Do what you got to do, right? Okay, so at the end of the day, here's what we're looking at. So Tang Dynasty is diminished. Now, they did conquer some more land over here, but they lost some land up here again to the Khitans. Some of this territory over here, which used to be part of China, is going to be a new state called Guangzhou. Nanzhao had expanded some down here and taken some more territory down here in the south. So even though Tang Dynasty got a little bit of this little corner right here back, they lost stuff in other areas. So not as powerful as they used to be. Again, the white man exploiting the Chinese. I mean, I don't make them put it in there. They could put it in whatever to-go container they want to. I just buy and their food is good. I like their food. I would get it even if I don't want the extra containers. I'm kind of talking myself into eating Chinese food. Need more orange chicken, right? I do frequently get orange chicken from them. It's rather tasty. For some reason, orange chicken and the broccoli. If you cook orange chicken the right way and you throw the broccoli in, I don't know why, it just makes that perfect mix of flavor. I dig it a lot. Anyway, I'm talking too much about food. You can see how easily I get distracted by food. Oddly, I'm not hungry. Sometimes I get on stream and I get off stream and I'm just ravenous, but I don't think I'm very hungry tonight. So anyway, but that is all that I had planned. So as always, if anybody has any questions about any of this stuff, you're welcome to ask, or if you want to do any point redemptions or stuff like that, you are welcome to it. Otherwise, we will go look for somebody to drop a raid on. Deep fried, sweet, and spicy chicken. It's so good. Orange is your secondary objective, but usually seek victory over the general. General Tso's is good stuff, but I don't typically like it that much. I like Mongolian beef a lot. I like sweet and sour chicken and orange chicken. So I usually get one of those three. They make really, really good egg rolls. Really good egg rolls. Chat says it's takeout night. No, we've already eaten. I ate before stream. I'm one of these weird people. I eat pretty early for somebody my age. I'll eat dinner 5:30 in the afternoon, because I've been trying lately to not eat late at night. I try to eat between a pretty narrow window of time, from about 9 o'clock in the morning to about 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the afternoon. So I try not to eat anything outside of that window. And it's been going okay. Sometimes I'll get really, really hungry at night, and then I'll just kind of stop. Mongolian beef placing my order now. Let's see what we got. We've got donations to the hat stream. Noger says, what's in the news? Noger, do you want to talk about anything specific, or you just want me to ramble about something? One more unit question. Was it rich nobility who castrated their kids? No. It was usually middle nobility people that sort of had no other option. The really, really big nobility, you didn't want to do that because you needed them to have kids. There's a documentary on the spread of Chinese food across America. It's called In Search of General Tso. I've heard of that one, Moose, but I've never seen it. Eating late at night is horrible for sleeping. Good on you. Well, it's also not so great for burning calories. So the way that it was explained to me by a personal trainer and a nutritionist is that your body is either in digestion mode or calorie burning mode, and it doesn't really have the best efficiency at doing them both at the same time, so it sort of prefers one or the other. So the more time that you're in digestion mode, the less time you're in calorie burning mode. And it's more of I like eating food, but I don't necessarily want to eat what we might consider super duper healthy. So as a way to sort of balance me eating Chinese food every now and then, I'll try to narrow the window that I do so that my body is kind of in that, I'm not eating phase for longer. U.S. and Germany are sending tanks. Yeah, so the Germans are suspected going to send. Well, they're not going to send 100 themselves, but they're going to authorize a package between themselves and Poland and a couple of other countries to send about 100 Leopard 2s. And the U.S. said that they're going to send about 31 Abrams. Since we're talking hat donations, I'm below 2K points. Oh. At what point did China become a single nation country? They're not a single nation country now. They are not even now. Nogred, did you respond? Was there something specific in the news that you wanted me to talk about, or do you just want me to pick something in the news and talk about it? China pretends that they are a single nation country now, but they are absolutely not. Not everybody in China is Han Chinese, regardless of how much everybody that runs China would like to pretend that they are. I'm very blunt about China, Dame Karen. I have some... I don't even consider them necessarily hot takes. Oh, the stream died. Oh, crap. Just whatever I want to. Okay. What shall I talk about? Wow. There's a lot of stuff actually going on right now. I always try to think about things that... the puppy actually just went outside, Tanker. She's outside. I just heard her woofing out in the backyard. So when she comes back in, I'll call her back up. But she is outside, probably going to see what all of the other dogs are woofing at. I don't know what's going on in the territory, but all of the neighborhood dogs are barking, and when that happens, she's just got to go outside and see. Let's see what's going on. I always try to talk about things that I don't think are getting enough coverage in the news. The puppy of war is out there terrorizing the neighborhood. Let's talk about opium. How about that? So, let me get the map up here and put some borders on, and let's look at Myanmar. Isn't it Burma? That's a quote from Seinfeld. So this country right here is Myanmar or Burma. Technically Myanmar. And they had a bit of... Well, they didn't have a bit of... They had a military coup a few years ago that overthrew the elected government. And they put the head of the elected government in jail, and they've dragged her up on false charges now like 7 or 8 times. She's probably going to die in jail. The military is still running the country right now under a junta. And the reason I said let's talk about opium, the economy in Myanmar is crashing through the floor. It turns out that totalitarian generals that run the military aren't the best economists, and they don't necessarily understand how to run countries other than do what I say or we're going to shoot you. So as the economy of Myanmar has collapsed, a lot of people in especially areas with fertile soil have shifted to growing poppies because opium always sells. And the production of opium in Myanmar has exploded in the last year. And it's getting to the point where they are starting to compete with the Afghan opium market. The biggest opium market in the world is over here in Afghanistan. But when the prices of opium are dropping in Afghanistan because Myanmar is now producing so much opium, that's a lot of opium, right? That's a pretty big issue. And the people that are running Myanmar right now are criminals. They are war criminals. This isn't me. You don't see the opinion hat on right now. This is just the truth. They were upset because the government was trying to eliminate the military's power over the government and create a new system whereby the government couldn't hold everybody hostage with tanks, which is why the coup happened in the first place. And they're illegally running the country right now, and the world doesn't really care so much about Myanmar very much, and that's unfortunate because there are millions of people in the country, and there's been a lot of a travesty over there. Facebook was directly involved in this. If you know about the Rohingya, they are an ethnic minority inside of Myanmar, so there's a lot of stuff going on over there. Someone told me that, oh, ha ha ha, ha ha ha. That's a good one though, Vipers. I appreciate that. All right, I think the puppy's back inside. Let me call the puppy. Here she comes. Hello. Come here. Come here. They want to see you. Your fans. They want to see the puppy. Yes. Hello. Hello. What are you doing? Did you go outside and woof? Oh, did you tell those neighbor dogs what's up? Did you give them the what for? Oh, that's a good girl. That is a good puppy. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. So many sugars. There we go. There's the puppy. Hanging out, being a good puppy, getting her booty scratched. Oh man, she loves the booty scratches. There we go. Oh, that's a good girl. There you go. There's the puppy of war for you. Hillary Clinton normalized relations with them, as I recall. Well, normalized, but so one of the things that Barack Obama was trying to do in his second term especially was create a Southeastern Asian trade network over here where these countries would trade more with each other and with the United States. And he was doing that specifically as an attempt to limit the trade power of China in the region, because even today China is a big trade partner with Southeast Asia. And Obama was trying really hard to sort of pry Southeast Asia away from China, and as a way of doing that, he was putting a lot of pressure on the military in Myanmar to allow for things like democratic elections, and they did. Aung San Suu Kyi, the lady that got mentioned here by, I think, Dame Karen. Yeah. She got elected, which was something that was a concession from the military because she had actually been barred from political office. So they agreed to let her run, and then she got elected, and they agreed to basically let her get elected as prime minister. So there were a lot of concessions made on the part of the military under the Obama administration, and while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, that she did a lot of that stuff, a lot of work with that. And then as soon as Obama left, one of the first things that Trump did was kill the big Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have included a lot of trade with Myanmar, and a lot of the concessions that Myanmar had offered was sort of contingent upon this big trade deal where they would be getting better deals from places like America, and a lot of the sanctions against the government would be eased. So there wasn't necessarily any reason for them to act good anymore. And they ended up kicking everybody out, taking over the country, and putting Kyi into jail. So it was pretty messy. She just plopped down into a giant pile of pillows. Whose society was more brutal, the Aztecs or the modern day USA? It depends on your definition of brutal. And you'd have to look at like per capita murder and stuff like that. There are probably more people in America that get killed every day than there were people in the Aztec Empire that got sacrificed every day. But the population of America is exponentially higher than the Aztecs. So you'd have to do population comparisons and do per capita percentages instead of like percentages of the whole. And it'd be really difficult to say. Puppy of War returns victorious from the battlefield. Exactly. Right. Well, she was a disappointment mostly because she got into power and she really realized that the military wasn't going to let her do anything. She was effectively just a figurehead. She read what they told them to read because they were holding a gun to her head, quite literally at some of these positions. That doesn't completely excuse it, but I at least understand that if somebody was doing that same thing to me, I might react the same way. That's not the right thing to do, but that doesn't mean that I would have done anything different. I don't know if I can take the moral high ground there because I'm not literally under threat of my life. You do a lot of stuff when people say this on public TV or we're going to kill you or kill your family, right? So it's a position that I would not have wanted to be in. I would argue it's the USA, but of course you would because that's your prerogative, right? I think it's hard to swallow a pill, but I think it's worth stating unambiguously the Aztecs tended to sacrifice enemy soldiers and slaves. So it's okay to sacrifice slaves, including slave children, but it's not okay to shoot people with guns, right? That's what you're getting at. It's okay to sacrifice women that we've raped and captured in war because they're different people, but America's shooting their own people. That's an overgeneralization of America because it implies that America views itself as one people, and I would argue that it absolutely doesn't. I absolutely argue that America internally does not consider itself one nation, even though it's all over the place. We consider ourselves multiple nations under one government. And who gets to control that government gets to decide which nation's going to run things. And it's not even broken down among racial boundaries all the time either. It's down financial lines and political lines. We do shoot other people as well, and we do. I think it's not as cut and dry as it might seem. Don't get saucy with me. Well, I mean, you know me, and you know that I have no problem saying America screws stuff up and does stuff wrong. But I also don't have a problem with saying it's not as bad as it's portrayed sometimes, and it might not be just America bad all the time. America screws a lot of stuff up. But one nation under God, yeah, I know. The question is, which God? How about that? If it's not Southern Baptist Jesus, is it the right God to be under? How about that? That's a great question. Right? One nation under Southern Baptist Jesus. What about Allah? Trucker hat Jesus? Maybe so. Maybe it's Cyborg Pirate Ninja Jesus. Anybody remember that? Back in like 2006 or 7, there was a picture going around, and it was Ninja Pirate Cyborg Jesus or something like that. You're in the wrong vocation. You should have been a lawyer. I've been told that before. Buddy Christ. When that thought occurred to me the other day, I thought the comparison could be used to shock Second Amendment supporters. No, I get the line of logic where and that's the line of logic is sound, right? I think the issue that I would point out is Second Amendment supporters, especially the really, really, really vocal and ardent ones that yell a lot and don't pay attention, aren't really shocked by anything. I don't know if you can shock those people because they are so firmly entrenched in their particular worldview that anything that even sounds slightly askew from their worldview gets immediately shut out and labeled as ignorant or offensive. Allah is just Arabic for God, you know. Oh yeah, absolutely. I am very much aware. I've studied religion academically for a while, and oh man, I have so many great stories about that. Anyway, we need to raid because I've still got to talk for 3 hours tomorrow, and I'm starting to get that itchy, scritchy feeling in the back of my throat. But it's been good talk. It has been good talk. So let's go do a raid, and I think we're going to go raid my buddy Cryomera. I've only got a few people streaming that I'm following right now, but that's okay. But Cryomera is cool people. Pretty much one of the biggest reasons why I am streaming in the first place, because Cryomera really encouraged me to get on stream and keep at it. So, and brought a whole bunch of big raids over here when I was first getting started and got a lot of eyeballs on my world. Is a good streamer and a good person and a good friend. So we're gonna go see Cryomera and have some fun over there. So the next time that I will definitely be streaming is next Thursday, and we'll be talking about Tibet and some stuff that's going on in Central Asia. And I'll say this, but I can't promise it. I would like to have a History of Middle Earth stream on Tuesday because I owe one to you all, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to put it together in time to have it on Tuesday, so I can't promise that. I would also like to do some model building on Sunday, but I also can't promise that. But definitely next Thursday. But until then, yell adventure when we get in Cryo's chat. Throw some adventure hats in. And until the next time I see you, y'all have a good one. Take it easy.